All right. How's everybody doing after a bit of pruning? I know what you can do. Shoot the pruner. I do. I do want to say this though. Just remember this. All right. No tree ever pruned itself. Okay. This is a body game, and we need him to do the pruning. And so he often, if he's in us, he'll work through us to do the pruning. But let's do it with love and respect and dignity towards one another, and let's do it in a way that can be done that can produce good fruit in our lives and to bless others. We're just not seeing that, in the body. In fact, we're trying to avoid, I believe, what produces good fruit from the fig tree, the Nathaniels, Israelites without guiles, because they're running from home to home, from fellowship to fellowship, leaving a trail of destruction behind them. Never just being able to be in a place where, I will take a little bit of pruning. I will take a little bit of input and discipleship into my life. And it doesn't mean I always like it. It doesn't mean, nowhere does it say that the tree has to enjoy the pruning, right? I know I certainly didn't. But I do know that in my Christian walk, the Father looked at it and said, I'm sorry, the inspection is not good enough, Curtis. I'm cutting you down. We're going to have to take you back to the crushing. And there's a time when we can learn these great processes and truths, and then they can really start to produce good fruit in our lives. And then there's a time when he may even use after that inspection so that we can give that fruit to others. But we do have a journey that we can't shortcut and trip up and try and do our own way. And, I'm doing this without a body. I'm doing it without pruners. I'm doing, it's just me and my buddy Messiah and whatever we've made him in our mind. And it's like, no, this is actually a body. The body talks. The scriptures talk about a body. It talks about 12 tribes. It talks about a house, and so, let's help each other in this pruning process, the light that we've brought from our crushings. Let's not let it go to waste. Let's let this now happen, that he's got some stuff to work with. And if we can, and we can help each other in this process, our fruit may start to become good and meet the Messiah's inspection, and then he can use us to do these things. But as we'll talk about next week, if we want to walk into the place, that Korah was demanding, the Levitical priesthood, I am the teacher, I'm the prophet, I'm this, I'm that. And we do this when the fruit is actually not fit for inspection. We end up with a lot of what we've been seeing out there in these religious environments, and certainly a lot of what I unfortunately see in the Messianics and Hebrew uprooting movements, where they're actually standing in a place they ought not. And of course, the fruit is bad. And this hurts people, doesn't allow them to heal, and, gets them to such a point where they won't even allow pruning or discipleship in their life. They're so hurt. And I often say to brothers or sisters, just keep going. Just keep going. It's okay. We've all made these mistakes. We've all struggled with these things. We've all had to be pruned. We've all, nobody's exempt of this. I don't know why the servant leaders forget this suddenly when, they're able to share some fruit, and they suddenly forget that there was a whole process to get there. And if it wasn't, then it may not be the real deal. So we can't forget this at any stage in our walk, Never forget where we've come from. But we do have to heal and move forward, too. We can't just use that as a place to stay and point fingers or play victim either. So, let's keep going. Let's not return back to the village. Let's keep going in this and helping each other get there. And I'm sorry if I've upset any of you today. That truly is not. It's not in my heart to do. I'm just speaking from the journey that I've lived. And anything I've said to you today is a part of this teaching, and how the word is spoken to you is a part of this teaching. And most importantly, the Ruach ministering to your heart, um, I had to live and live to. So let's not forget that. So yeah, please don't be too upset with the pruning teaching today, but it is a part of making it, taking the hidden revelation of his truths, his eternal truths, but allowing it to become practical in understanding our journey. And it's a tough challenge to do that. How do I take the hidden revelations and make it a practical application? Well, I didn't have to come up with it. He did. He came up with the creation, the pruning, the crushing. You see, I only needed to just go, well, how did you explain it? How did you give us these pictures? And so it's just for us to maybe not reinvent the wheel, but just to maybe find the concealed matters of Elohim that he wants us to search up, so that we can start presenting it with the understanding in a way that is more pleasing to him. And that's really the goal. And we all got work. We're all works in progress here. But none of this, he's asked us to be perfect along the way, but he does want us to understand these things. Amen? All right, let's take Michaela here. Can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, I can hear you.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you
How
so
are
much for
you?
the teaching. I'm doing well. Um, so I had a question because so you were talking about how the pruning of the fig tree relates to the instruction and correction that we receive in a discipleship context.
Yeah.
And so my question related to that is, how do we know when someone, like including ourselves, are in our dormant season? So we avoid causing disease. Like, did you mean
Yeah.
it figuratively, as in like between life crushings, or literally between feast times, or both?
Yeah, look, that is a really interesting question. I didn't used to take that so literally. I used to be a bit more figuratively to me, I guess. I'm trying to think about how I used to view it. Um, but I'm now more conscious than I was before, literally, that not to be doing this around the appointed times, and in the harvest seasons leading up to Shavuot, and in these times, it seems to me the best time is actually, physically it's winter, but I actually find that this time between the appointed times, there's less propensity for violence to be done to the appointed times, if that makes sense. So it applies to every weekly appointed time, the Sabbath, of course, but um, that's a really interesting question. I've come to take it a bit more literally. And so if I was to encourage discipleship environments or discipleship amongst the women and things like that, that, have the relationship in that time in the dormant season. Don't bring it in to when people are trying to receive nourishment and understanding and partake of fruit, if that makes sense. Um, so yeah, I guess if I'm to answer that honestly, I just take it a little bit more literally now. It's the reason for this teaching to be in this time, so that we can deal with it, and have the time to deal with it. Oh, somebody's got something to say. Yes.
Yeah.
But isn't she beautiful? Is that okay? I just want to
This
see
is
her.
a Tara. It's my baby here.
Oh, look at that. See, that's a shadow picture of us.
For sure. Lots of learnings from this one.
Yeah. Um, she's beautiful.
Thank
Yeah. So if I'm to be honest, it's become more literal to me, because I just find between serving and what coming together is about and thinking in harvest terms, you don't prune when you harvest, And so I kind of think the way he's done it may have a literal application for us. I know for me, it's becoming more and more. I don't want to prune unless a brother or sister forces me into that space now. And unfortunately, sometimes, it's like, why, but I tend to go, hey, listen, don't cut it down. Let's try some, digging the soil and putting some nutrients in. I tend to try and take that route more than the pruning route. But at this time of the year, I'll tend to probably be a little bit tougher with myself and my own walk and my brothers, um,
Mm,
in the sense of, hey, that cut it out, you know,
yeah.
this has got to go. Um, and but it's not cut it out in the sense of just stop it. It's more understanding when you have relationship, someone allows you to speak more into their lives, don't they?
Mm.
And so we often want to do something without the relationship that commands it. And so an orchardist is planted those trees, watering those trees, nurturing. Do you see what I mean? It has the right to prune it. And I think what happens is sometimes we need to be pruned ourselves, and we're trying to prune someone else. I'll just be honest. This is what I'm seeing all the time in the body, and it's like whoa, and this is log plank stuff.
Yeah.
You remove the log out of your own eye before you get the speck out of your brother's. And so I just think I'm more literally. Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and for me, it's becoming more literal. Um, Maybe that's because I'm serving, but I'll tend to go the digging and the mirror out, just like the parable in the fig tree there, and that um, outside of this time of the year, and I'll tend to lean more into, okay, well, Father, you might be cutting some branches in me. Hopefully, too much oozy milk doesn't ooze out of me and irritate
Yeah.
everyone and everything else. And so, yeah, I guess that's the best. I can only answer that personally. I'm tended to be now being steered more towards that. I
Okay.
think sometimes, I think we can all be a bit quick to grab a set of pruners for a brother or sister because, we need them to see it our way or change them or whatever else it is. We'll grab those pruning edges and start snapping at each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you're right. Like, it's never a bad time to fertilize and provide nutrients and encouragement, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely seasons for pruning. So thank you for answering the question. And would you say that like the pruners are more like you kind of have to be more qualified, if that makes sense, like in the walk for a extended period of time and have fruit in your life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting question too. Yeah, this is why you see it's inspected on the fourth year, and the fifth year that fruit can go out.
Yeah.
Well, if the reason for pruning is fruit, then you need to have something that's lived the process itself and has become
Okay.
fit. So I think it naturally fits within what we see in servant leadership and what we saw in the old Levitical temple system and in all of that is that there was a process to go there. Remember the process Moshe went through before he was used to give the Torah. I mean, I'm telling you, like it's
Yeah.
look at what the Apostle Paul went through. You know, look at what Messiah willingly allowed himself to go through. You know, because he's the inspector of it, he could do things in a way that we couldn't. But I just think, yeah, we have people that have not produced the good fruit in their own life. What makes them worthy of the pruning? And I often have to say to a brother and sister, you've been in the faith a couple of years. You want to sit here and argue, criticize us, point the finger at them, try and correct your brother and sister here. And I just look at them. I go, who are you? What is the fruit of your life? And we're just, yeah, and then of course the danger from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and how it's just AI is infecting everything. There's people now not even hearing the living voice. So they're hearing matters of the faith and it's dead. Or they're receiving deceptive things and it's not living and it's not life-giving. And so, like I say, and you can get all the truth you want, but the application of it requires a process to bear fruit. So truth in and of itself doesn't bear fruit. The application of it requires a process. And I have to be reminded of that. I've had to live that. I have to remind others of it. I think the very thing you just said is why we see so much bad fruit. I think there's a lot of people that are engaged in a process that they've not even gone past the inspection themselves. And all of that stuff I was talking about that I see in the Hebrew roots and Messianic movements that's not so good, I think is often caused because they're operating a place they ought not. Their fruit is not good.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I would think it would behoove us to go through the process so that he can use us, and then we become a better, we become more useful to the master, and hopefully a better witness as we do it, you know. Um, but we are in this fallen state, and so we're trying to do the best we can. But I think these principles we have to take seriously. He didn't outlay it all this way for nothing, you know. And so, as we mature, we'll start to look at the character of our brother or sister. We'll start to, walk with them, get to know them, understand what fruit there really is in their lives. Why am I listening to them? Why are they causing these arguments? Are they hurting? Do they need to relearn, how to trust and all these sorts of things? And that's why I think the discipleship process is where he engages to help in that healing. Because once somebody's healed, I know for me, the more healing I experienced from my crushings and the more light that could come forth from that, the more I was willing to be pruned.
Mm. Yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
and perhaps I really should have mentioned that. It was remiss of me not to in the actual teaching today. Um, and then, of course, we're all imperfect as we're going through this. So, it's kind of easy to criticize each other. And criticizing is not pruning. Pruning is when you're actually willing to work with someone.
Yeah,
Casting
yeah, really
judgment is
true.
not pruning. Making self-righteous judgments is not pruning. It doesn't meet the biblical mandate because the reason for pruning is only for the purpose that it may produce good fruit. I see a lot of stuff going on out there, and I don't think people care about what fruit someone produces or not. They just want to make sure that someone sees it their way, or I'm right, you're wrong. And I don't think that motivation of the heart is coming from a place where you truly want to see fruit in someone's life.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Beautiful pictures.
you're welcome. Bless you. Shabbat
Thank
shalom to
you.
the family.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Nancy, Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Curtis.
How are you?
Well, at the moment, I'm a little sick, but that's not the point. I'm well. I'm well. I just a little background. I've been in the walk for maybe 6 months, not very long. I came in just before the fall harvests, so I'm a baby. I have been participating in the fellowship times for the women, and being here for teaching and
Nice.
doing extra teaching, listening to not old, former messages. But my question is, so that's discipleship, but I don't feel that it is. It's teaching and it's fellowship. Where does a widow find discipleship?
Yeah, it will find from the fellowship is where you've formed the deeper relations. So again, a good question because it's not an easy place, right? From the widow position. Where have you gone? You still there?
I'm still here. I
Oh,
got
there you go.
moved.
Oh, right. Okay.
You want me to put my hand up again?
Yeah, put your hand up so I can see you
Okay.
because at my screen you're gone.
Okay. There you
There
go.
we go. Nice. Um, so so that's a difficult position. Yet the widows are so cherished and precious to the house, and so one of the reasons for that is they can hold a lot of life experience and wisdom that come with it and things like that. Right? We tend to be in a society that is disregarding that. Um, Almost it seems, it's like because of these tools that we've got and this AI and our gadgets and everything else. Oh, I don't need the elders, right, and all that sort of a thing, and to our folly. Well, often, someone who's lost their spouse, that doesn't mean suddenly their life journey and their understanding whatnot is suddenly. In fact, it's more valuable. But we've lost this as a society. We're not looking to that which has done the journey in it, and so as a result, It can make it very difficult, say if you're in a widow position, right? But in a healthy community, it will start to value the widow again. You know what I mean? It will value someone who is single. They're not just writing them off and doing this, because what they're doing is they're looking to Messiah in their journey. So as you fellowship more, and build those relationships with women, that is when naturally that deeper level of discipleship comes in. But what you want to have is always be where there is a healthy community, where there's a spiritual headship. So in other words, someone like yourself, do you have someone disciple into your life, even prune you or be nurturing that, where they themselves don't have any spiritual headship in their lives and things like, it's like, no, like you want to know who you're listening to, who you're, who's feeding into your life. This is not an option. If we don't, we can have a lot of stuff come in.
Yes.
And it's not because it's not done in good intent. Most of the damage to the body that I have seen and witnessed was based on the best of intent. Zeal, wanting to, serve the master and all that. Like that's not the issue. The issue is, are we doing it his way? And do we respect why he's put and guarded us in a certain way of living the faith, that it may produce in us good fruit? So I would say to someone like yourself, build those relationships. Value the fact that they may still have a husband in their life that is a spiritual headship. That's one thing you'd want to ask. Just because someone's married doesn't mean that the husband is taking their spiritual headship seriously, right? So you want to know that, right? There's things, but you don't know these things in a real way unless you start walking with them. And so do what you can in that fellowship to build the relationship that then allows the greater discipleship, if that makes sense, and the more intimate. You don't have to be married to get intimate fellowship. You just don't want to be getting intimate fellowship in an uncovenant situation, right? Whether it be widow or single, where there's no spiritual headship. And that's very dangerous, right? And so that's what it's saying. This is why you see it in the end times, where it's saying, in the prophecies of Ezekiel, where it's saying that there'll be 7 women to 1 man. This is going to finish in that state. And they're not asking to be married to the what they're saying is, can I come into this headship? Because they're actually recognizing I'm eating from all of this stuff, no matter how good the intent is, no matter how much knowledge it may even have or profess to have. It's actually not helping. It's not healthy. Right. So that would be my encouragement to you. And like I say, in essence, it's a very good question, because there are people who are single and widowed in the community, and those who are in a covenant marriage that still don't have a spiritual headship going on. And so there's a vulnerability there, because the most powerful force created by Elohim that I know of in the physical time domain is a woman. So he's going after that. The healthier, I believe, the true healthier, the more we truly have biblical women mature and come forth, the healthier we will be as a body. But apparently that's impossible unless the men take up their spiritual headship. So if we really want the body to be healthy, we need the men to be doing what they're supposed to, so that the women can flourish. And you can flourish as a single one, you can flourish as a widow, you can flourish married. Like, it's the flourishing of the woman's design in the body is there for all three. But we must do it the way he's asked us to, else we could find ourselves in a lot of trouble.
Right.
And that's all that's going on. So I would encourage you, the women he's leading you with and whatnot, really get to know and walk and understand, their walk, and look and allow Messiah into you to, inspect the fruit of the character of that person. Are they somebody that truly respects Yah's ways? And if they don't, if they think they're above them, why are you listening to them? Why are you receiving a pruning from that, if that makes sense? Because like I say, there's a lot of people out there pruning that have no business pruning, but they don't know that. So it behooves us to actually mature and grow so that we can recognize it. There are certain people that can speak into my life, that can prune, And these are the people that walk with me, know me, they understand, they can do this, my wife being number one. And they can do this as a part of my discipleship. But there are some people I see, I'm sorry, brother, sister, stop right there. You have no concept of what you're talking about and what the real meanings of this are. And you think whatever it is or whatever instruction, I'm going, whoa, like you don't have this right. And actually, you're speaking foolishness and you don't know it. Now, you might have knowledge, but the application is far removed from the biblical process and why he does things a certain way. And often that is why I'm looking at something going, it's not your knowledge that's I'm giving you the stop on. It's I'm seeing, something, and you're operating where you ought not right now. Doesn't mean you always will. Right. And it doesn't mean that if you knew me well, that I wouldn't allow you to feed him. What I'm saying is that we're trying to impose ourselves into a place that's fit and met for discipleship, right? So that it is meant to bear good fruit. We're trying to impose ourselves where we don't have it. And so that's causing a lot of unnecessary angst in the body, if that makes sense.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So keep going, Nancy. You watch what will happen and you'll start to see, okay, I love this person. I love this person. This one's fit to prune and feed into my life. This one's not in that place, but I love them both. And I'm going to live the discipleship process with both. It's okay. It's okay to say to someone, I'm sorry, this person feeds into my life. And there's a reason for that. And I know what that reason is. And it's not because of the way they dress or how much knowledge they have or think they have. It's not because of what denomination. It's not because everything they say I love. So that's why I listen to them, And in fact, you'll actually find truth probably coming from those you'll hear from. And it actually doesn't feel so good sometimes.
Right.
And if they have the right motivation of heart, that's Messiah. And to know that, you really want to engage as a body, because to be honest with you, a lot of us have just become distrusting. This community is like a big inn. A lot of people that come to us have they've been playing in these religious trees, eating this bad fruit, getting hurt, doing this, doing that. They arrive here and honestly, they're so hurt. And they might have lots of knowledge, but they're hurt. And the tree's been cut down. And the problem is that they themselves don't see that. So then they want to start imposing everything on everyone and everything around them. And then suddenly they face some accountability. And then suddenly it's like, well, I'm out of here, and then again, another fellowship thing, and another home to rent, and it's just a trail after trail after trail because they don't accept that Messiah has to prune us all. And they won't accept it. They'll just keep doing the religious musical chairs. And you see it, and it's just like, okay. And this is why repentance is the must. Because without repentance, how does anybody stay in this process? My flesh doesn't like it. I'm guessing, Nancy, your flesh doesn't like it either, right? But I'll tell you, you have a journey, and you have a value, and you have a process that you're living. And the fact that you're in a widow situation does not change that.
Okay.
And so, but it's a matter of it being in the healthy space. Right? Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Okay.
And I will say that I'm one of those that has come in very hurt. So I'm still in that position. Okay.
Sure.
And
so you're healing. You're healing. Yeah. You have the almond tree and you're healing, and that oil that's come from that hurt, don't worry, he'll light. And that's going to get you to, to this next day. It will happen. The journey will happen. Thank you for being so honest about that too, and candid with it. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Curtis, and I will sign off now. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bless you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
All right. Last but not least, Trisha.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
What is it? The last will be first and the first will be last, right? So we're all the same.
Yeah.
Okay. I actually have a question from my daughter who does not want to ask it. She is right here to my side.
She
You can see
doesn't
her
want
hand.
to say, she don't want to say hi to me? Am I that scary? Am I that scary? I'm not scary. Am I scary?
She's a little bit.
Man, that's a horrible thought. Is that why some people don't come on and ask a question?
Right, no one wants to talk and say hi and introduce themselves. So like, nope.
Oh, well, bless her heart. Well, I am interested in her question, though. So,
yeah, okay. Well, I'm going to read it to you. She wrote it down. She said, "How could you prove to an atheist that God is real when they base everything on science and believe if God is real that he isn't good because he says follow me or go to hell as they see it?" Which that's like a big question, which is like real good.
Big question. Okay, say that. Just repeat that to me again.
Okay, she said, "How could you prove to an atheist that God is real when they base everything off science and believe if he is real that he isn't good because he says follow me or go to hell as the world sees it?"
Right. Okay. I would say this, and this is how it relates to the teaching, because it's hard to connect the dots to that question, but it's not really. This is about our light and witness. You can't convict them. We don't change any. We don't convict anyone. We don't call anyone. He has to call them. But our job is to be in the faith that we may be able to not only speak the gospel, but to be a witness of it. The worse our witness is, the less the gospel goes forward. And this is what the adversary is doing, right? So if you looked at most atheists, this is why I love her question, and they were viewing the three big monotheistic religions of the earth right now, would they say, I want this? See, it's like we have to be honest with this. Well, then let's take it past that, closer to our own backyard. If they looked at our journeys, and these so-called messianics, Hebrew uprooting labels that we accept. By the way, I don't see Hebrew roots or messianic anywhere in Scripture. I don't know why we keep accepting labels upon ourselves. But here's the point. Our witness can be used when the Father calls someone. We were never called to go and convince and convert, control. We were called to give account of the hope that's within us when it's required. And hopefully we'll be a good account and a good witness. The more our witness matures, the more we grow and mature in the faith properly, I think the more we can be used to give an account. In my experience, if an atheist is not truly asking, well, then who is this Elohim? No matter how much I can articulate it, no matter how much I could just go up to somebody, I could pick a stranger off the street and go, here's why you need to believe in a true biblical faith, and explain it all to them. They would just look at me and go, you're an idiot. Now, if I'm called to give an account, there may have been work or seeds sown earlier in that life and things that of someone I didn't even know. But if I'm giving that account, but my witness is still bad, my fruit is still bad, then even the truth in that witness is still subject to the witness. And this is what I was trying to say last week in the Q&A. We don't consider the witness part of this. And if somebody's truly looking to understand matters of faith, they are going to look at you with a microscope, an atheist microscope, an agnostic microscope, asking questions. They're going to be doing this. And so we want to give an account for the hope that's within us, and we want to be doing that, hopefully with the witness of, some good fruit in our lives. And Often none of that is present, you know. And again, if people are left now to view what we're seeing in the religious worlds, this religious fruit of these ones that claim a God, I'm not sure if that's all they think it is. Then are they really rejecting Messiah, or are they rejecting the bad witness of Messiah? So this is where the judgment seat, the great white throne, is going to really come into play. You know, I have often thought back in my life and going, my goodness, have I caused a little one to stumble so that they have to face the great white throne? No. Because my witness was why they rejected Elohim. The fact that I accepted a Christian label, let's say, and they see Christianity for what it is. So did I become a part of why they didn't seek? Even if it's by guilt by association. And so this is why I actually say to people, do not do this. You know, if I'm saying, so you're a Christian? No. So you're Jewish? No. So you're Hebrew roots? No. So you're Messianic? No. What are you? Let me share. And we have to do that from a place of knowing that we ourselves don't look or sound so good or smell so good. like they need to see that, no, like we're fallen too. But we want to give them the fig leaves. We want to hide our shame behind these religious facades because we don't want people to see us. Just like Adam and Eve. Welcome to the fruitless fig tree. So we sow those leaves of religion together and we present ourselves. And, you know, I'm hoping that my witness can be used less by Hasatan to someone who's searching than it once could be. It's possible that my previous religious journey was a tool in Hasatan's hand. I want to be a tool in Messiah's hand. Well, there's got to be some good fruit happening. There's got to be a budded olive branch, right? And as we're seeing these symbolisms in Scripture. And so, yeah, may our King have mercy on my life and any of us that have been on this religious journey. So we have an opportunity to discuss and learn and go through a pruning message like this, and you know, and hopefully we'll look at ourselves and go, you know, actually, you know, I actually just need to actually allow a process that can produce some good fruit, and maybe I can be used as a good witness. The world doesn't need the bad fruit of religion anymore. So it needs the right witness. And so I don't know any other process built into the creation and the instructions of Messiah and the witness of the early Kahal and all the examples from Adam to Moshe to Paul to Messiah to the early Kahal that didn't have to go through this process. So why was I tricked into religion to thinking that I could bypass it all? You know? And it's because I inherited lies. And it's only through the crushing, the process, understanding this and seeing how he wants us and what he instructed, go and make disciples of nations. It wasn't go and create people to join a denomination that agrees with you. And so everybody can, you know, be in an echo chamber and itch each other's ears. It was literally go and make disciples. And as a part of that process, you will be able to start to bear good fruit and help others to be able to bear good fruit. But we don't want to live that process. We're so hurt sometimes. Like it just, I can't trust. I don't want to, you know, and it's like, you know, they're too different from me or whatever it might be. And it's like, no, this is the thing to look, the very DS1, the men's stable I'm in, Trisha, I kid you not, I just wouldn't have gone out, at least at that time in my life, and gone, oh, you're who I want to have discipleship with. Oh, you're who I want. You see what I mean? I didn't do that. In fact, I'm going, and they probably were too. Really, Father? Like what? It wasn't our sameness. It wasn't our journeys were the same. You know, it was the fact they weren't, but both were trying to, allow this process. And over that time, I've learned to love and value them so much in my life. And hopefully them me. But that wasn't initially where it starts. You have to allow this process, which is sometimes it's challenging because people can, have you ever noticed people can irritate you? Has anyone ever been irritated by anybody here of the faith? I mean, honestly, people of the faith can be really irritating at times. Well, that's not our excuse to go, I'm out of here. Sometimes we may need to be irritated. Sometimes you may, like these things there will help us if we can just allow ourselves to stay in the process. Anyway, great question from your beautiful daughter. And so let's work on the witness. Let him do the calling. And then when she's called upon, she can present Messiah, hopefully in a way that's pleasing to him. All right. I saw the thumb. Hey, I get to see her thumb anyway. There we go. Man, I'm really scary. Must be. Anyway, I don't know. Let's finish there, right? I think we can finish here. I don't think there's anything else that I don't think there's anything else that I got to say here. I think I've said enough. I think I've said enough to irritate everybody here. I'm just going to make sure this is closed off. Okay. Well, let's finish with the blessing. I hope this pruning message and related fruit message in this journey through the faith trees, the religious trees, I do hope it was a blessing to you. I know understanding these principles and seeing these things have been a blessing in my walk. And I certainly don't claim perfection in it, but it has certainly helped. I do hope that it helps you, that the practical understanding of these hidden revelations actually can happen. Anyway, let's finish up with a blessing. Yah will bless you and guard you. Yah will shine his countenance upon you and be gracious to you. Yah will turn his countenance toward you and grant you shalom. A big blessing to everyone for the completion of your Sabbath. Have a wonderful, wonderful time together and rest. And we'll look forward. We're heading towards the holy place next week. We got some more information to gather from his creation. Headed our way. Is that all right? Okay. All right. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Bless you.